Hi, this is the Drupal usability meeting for January 29th, 2019. And for today, we have a bunch of suggestions around media, especially the new file field redesign and layout builder issues as well. So since Sean arrived very early, let's start with the file field redesign.
Okay, hi everyone. Let me share my screen. I think everyone should see my screen now. There is this file field design update issue. I'll post the link in the chat as well. It's issue 2113931. And let me scroll up to the designs first. So basically, we have this new designs for the managed file fields and also the image fields. And this is going on for quite a while. I think this issue is now almost 6 years old, 5.5. And there's been a lot of work on this. And in regards to the new media library, where we also wanted the drop zone, we decided to work on this. And we got the designs implemented. And we were now in a stage where Laurie did some reviews on it. And he noticed one thing in particular where what I needed feedback on is that this file field for where the cardinality is more than one, there's a multiple file fields. It currently has a table. I can also show that how it looks right now. So we have this field set details element where you have added multiple files. It now shows you a table with a table drag and a display checkbox and everything with an add new file field below it. And in the new designs, there seems to be no table or no table header at least. And the table drag thing was gone. And there's also no design for the show weights. And I think we need all of those elements in there. So what I concluded, and let me see if I can find the comment real quick. Yeah, so Laurie mentioned that the implementation is still quite far from the design. The design doesn't include the table headers. Each of the rows should have the borders and a few pixels of margin between them. And my response to that was, I think if we remove the table header and the other elements that are not in the design, there are significant UX and accessibility implications, which we should probably talk about right now for a bit. And my feeling is that we need a new design for at least the multiple file fields. And also, if we remove this field set around it, which kind of shows you which files belong to which field. I'm going to switch again right now. You see the border around this whole block to show that everything is together. That's also not really in the design, and I think we still need that. So any questions or first thoughts on this?
I think you're right. I think we need to keep the options for reordering them. If we interpreted the design as being everything underneath the table headers, how close would it be to being reasonable? Because I also agree that we should have the field set.
So if we only make like this design right here that I'm showing with my mouse right now, to make that the table rows, you mean?
Right. So would that be reasonable, or is that still problematic?
I think
it's still missing the table drag.
Yeah, and the table headers, which I have also a version that's already been styled a bit like the new design. It's like this, where we basically focused on the field only and just try to clean up the table a bit. But you have like the display checkbox. If you remove the table header, like how do you know what that checkbox is? So
Yeah, you need to have the feature somehow. Yeah.
yeah, so we need some kind of information in the table header, and also some kind of indication that the table and the upload field belong together. So I don't think we can move that far off from what we currently have right now. But probably somebody with a better design eye than I have can make something more out of it. But I'm also not sure if that would like break the consistency with other tables in the site and what the implications of that are.
Well, I'll just weigh in. I think we have, yeah, what you have on your screen right now, like, I feel like is the bare minimum of what we need to keep. The table drag is critical for me because, like, I've used file fields for slideshows. You know, you just say upload, you know, photograph, like before media is in core. It's just like upload a bunch of photographs, sort them, add descriptions. You've got a really cheap slideshow, simple. And displays used to hide certain slides that you don't want. The X throws me off because we don't use that pattern in core that much. We use the word remove. I know we can make the X, we can make it accessible like that, but it's introducing a new pattern to something that people are currently using. Like, why wouldn't we use remove in other cases where we, like wherever we use remove? I'm trying to think of examples. Like, I think when we're building image filters, you know, you can, maybe it says delete. I'd have to look and see what the UX says. I think adding the widget below makes a lot of sense. What you have here in the design where you're like, here's the drop zone, add files, the description, that's like an MVP. It's like a really simple way to improve the user experience without creating a lot more questions that have to be answered.
A quick response to the X icon. I think we already use that in the media fields right now. Let me just try to add one. So yeah, it looks, it has like this, I don't know, this little buttony feel to it. But
that's justified. But that's justified because the use cases, you know, you couldn't have a remove button dangling there. It's a visual thumbnail. The pattern's a little more established. I also just throw out like X in the upper left or right hand corner of a control is pretty, you know, like that seems like a common pattern. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying we're introducing a new UX pattern. Yeah, one question would be, is that UX pattern, should that be coming from the new theme layer and not the module?
It's currently in 7 only. So all these enhancements are only for 7.
So if someone installed like a different admin theme, they would get a remove button?
Yes.
Okay. That makes a lot, that approach makes a lot more sense to me, because then it gives people the opportunity to style. Because Material Admin definitely has their own version of an X. I can think of that. Yeah, Material UI. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you raise a fair point. I have not questioned that yet in the original design. And I personally, when I looked at this list of screenshots or designs, I kind of got the feeling that this was only about the actual upload field. So trying to move from this to this. And only when Laurie mentioned that there's actually this one last design that also kind of implicates that there's a design for the multiple file fields, that's where I was like, okay, maybe this needs a little bit more work. But I kind of get the feeling that we all agree on that. And I was hoping that someone can maybe take the time to or I can make a summary of what we just discussed, and then just create a follow-up for this to fix the table as well. Does that sound like a plan?
So you're asking for a comment or for updated designs?
Well, I think if we want to have updated designs, this issue has been going on for a long time, and I'm not really sure if what we have right now is, I don't know, not good enough without updating the table as well. So I kind of prefer if we could move forward with what we have right now and fix this table display in another issue if needed. And I think that's probably what we need UX sign off on, that what we currently have is good enough to move forward and have and fix the table in a follow-up. So I'm not really sure, who is the right person to do that.
Well, could we back up to the goal of the ticket is to add a drop zone to upload files? Is that pretty like?
Well, it started as the file field design update, but if you look at the designs, it's mostly about changing like this ugly file field to this nice, drop zone element. So I think we have accomplished like most of the design at least. And what we haven't done is this small part that shows some kind of table row, and I think we all kind of agree that that probably needs more work.
It's incomplete, and if we wanted to solve the problem of the layout of multiple values for fields, it's a bigger issue because fields don't have a remove button already. Like, I agree. I think it's a different follow-up issue, and the concept of a remove button, people add it manually. I mean, I've done it too. Because you might have entity references, and people don't know that to remove an entity reference, they have to empty out the value.
Ah, yes.
And it'd be nice to click remove. So yeah, I agree with you that I think you should only focus on what the widget, the drop zone widget. My technical question on the ticket would be, since you're designing it for the 7 theme, it would be nice to see it like undesigned. Like what not undesigned, but what's going to happen if someone's not using the 7 theme? What's it going to look like? And what flexibility do people who are building custom admin themes have? From my perspective, from an admin theme, I'd like the drop zone to be bigger. I think the design here is fine. It's a square, but if you're trying to improve the UX of dragging and dropping something to upload, I might go in and want to make that wider, and I want to know that that's possible. Like that there's a template dedicated to the widget, or I hadn't looked at the code to see how you implemented it.
It's basically a small JavaScript file and CSS only added to 7.
Oh, to just enhance this one.
Yes.
I can understand that.
And it's also progressively enhanced. So if you don't have JavaScript enabled, then you still see the old file fields.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think other people, other admin themes will either copy that or go off on their own approach. Yeah,
and there was some discussion of maybe we could add this to stable or something. But I think like the changes we made were also like that. We changed the markup. We changed a lot of CSS, and if we do that in stable or maybe in classy, then we will probably break existing sites. So, and since they are part of the public API, we can't do that, I guess.
So the only missing part here is just the drag and drop thing?
Well, I think the design here for the files field, like if you have only one file in the upload field, then you probably see that this belongs together. But if you look at this specific example, the label of the field is up here and the file field is down here. And if we remove the background and the border around this whole field, then you will probably lose the connection of the field where you upload stuff, the table, and the label of the field. So,
and also the alternative text if it's an image.
yeah, exactly. So that makes like this whole field becomes kind of big. And if you don't have the background and the border and you just throw everything below each other, it's kind of hard to see where one field ends and the other field begins.
Yeah.
Well, because I tried to implement the design, and like after a couple of minutes, I already saw this is not going to work.
No.
So that's why.
If you only have.
Sorry?
Yeah, and if you only have one field for the alternative field, that's cool. But what if you have like 5 fields or something like that inside metadata or something like that? So yeah, it's a problem. I think it's more like a design problem than anything else. I think the problem here is the design doesn't solve all the situations, and what is needed here is design, I think. And I'm not really sure what's the best approach here, but if we are going to actually kind of replace this at some point in the future, not far from now, I mean all the admin UI, I'm not really sure how much it will take to update all this, to solve all these problems with a new design specifically for 7 right now. I don't want to discourage you to work on that, but I'm not really sure we should actually implement that maybe on the draggable, for example, on the multi-file.
I think that's a fair point. I think the most important thing, if we can agree that just the enhancement of the specific upload field to this new drop zone thingy is already good enough for this first issue, then we can create a follow-up to update the multiple fields, designs first, and then do the implementation probably in the same issue. And we can decide then in that issue if we want to do that in 7 or in new admin UI, or yeah. I think if this does that sum it up.
Yeah,
okay.
I would say so for me, but I don't know what other people think. Because that's a really nice design, and it's not good to not implement it, but there are some missing parts there.
Oh, there's one other last question, and then I'm done. The default image was also not in the design, and I was thinking about how can we add this to the to the new design. And in the old situation, there was not a label here, so it was not really clear that this was a default image. So I was thinking this needs a label, and it probably belongs more to the description of like we have allowed file types, one file only. And by the way, there's also a default image for this field. So that's why I added it here. And I added a pretty long description here just to see what it looks like. But if you like have a smaller description or no description at all, it looks like this. Any thoughts about that one?
The pattern I'm used to for default images is it always goes where you expect the image to be uploaded. So if I was thinking of default images, on your screen right now, it wouldn't go there. It would go, like if someone was uploading an image, it would show the table above and have the issue. I think right now they show the default image, and the issue is they're just not saying it's the default image. Is that right? In core, like the behavior right now,
like this one,
it does that.
Yeah.
And the mistake there is it's just missing a watermark to say it's the default image.
Yeah,
Like that's the expected behavior I'm used to.
And in the new design, we have the drop zone where the image is going to be. So we probably can't put the default image where the drop zone is. But maybe that's a design problem as well.
But if you're doing multiples,
Yeah.
the default image would be above. Yeah, it's a design.
Yeah, it's another design thing, I think.
I think I have enough information right now to at least create the follow-ups to further improve the default image display and the multiple file fields. And I don't want to take up too much time. So I will sum this up in the issue, and we'll see from there. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think the next one was Ben.
All right. So I have been working on the ability to toggle live preview mode in the layout builder. And so I just wanted to quickly demo it and see if I can surface any UX concerns in the process. So let's see if I can share my screen. Hold on just a second. All right, so let's see.
Turned on your camera, but we don't see your screen.
Yeah, this is a little different than the Hangout interface I'm used to. There we go. All right. Okay, so basically, this is just the standard preview mode that we currently see. Added a checkbox here for live preview, and when it turns off, it just grabs the block placeholder content and simplifies the interface. And oh, I just switched back to the branch, so JavaScript probably isn't fresh, but it should not go back to live preview mode after dragging. So that's actually addressed. I just haven't cleared cache, but that's basically what how it would work. Is this is live preview, or this is when it's in grid mode, and this is the default live preview mode. And that's basically it. And I'd be interested in hearing people's concerns about the approach.
Part of the backstory is that one of the problems we're trying to solve too is that the dragging and dropping of very large, not even very large blocks is really difficult. So if you have a body field and you try to drag it, it's really difficult with the default text because it generates a bunch of text. And another problem that this also might solve is that if you have two like big text fields and you don't expose the label, then you don't really know if like one could be the body and one could be like the bio field. And if you don't expose the label in the live preview, there's absolutely no way to tell one from the other.
Have you considered a control other than a checkbox for this? Some sort of toggle?
Checkbox was the first thing that came to mind. I crossed my mind, but that was the easiest to implement, to be honest. But yeah, toggle, having a switch that made it clear that it was switching between two modes as opposed to turning a single mode on and off, I think could have its benefits. Is there a precedent for that in other
Oh,
another
also
module.
for the recording, could you read out the issue number?
Oh, sure. It is 2959493.
Yeah, I think the non-live preview mode, the text mode, if you will, or the summary mode, looks very usable. I haven't played with the layout builder much myself, but I certainly believe what Ted says, that it can get to be cumbersome with actual stuff there. So it looks like a good idea, and the only thing I noticed from your little demo is that it would be nice to have a toggle rather than a checkbox. But I really like what you've done in the issue.
Right. Yeah, I can look into toggles, and then if that's the extent of the feedback, we can move to the next. Or
yeah, just quickly on toggles. There's no pattern in core for toggles. Usually it's buttons. You know, like oh my god, paragraphs has this issue too. Is they're trying to let it so you can preview paragraphs while you're editing. It's in their experimental display. So when you're building your paragraphs, keep in mind this is the admin UI, and they're using buttons that change the label, but they're using this syntax of like collapse and expand, which is honestly I think is awkward. But you click expand and it gives you a preview of the content that you're going to edit in the paragraph. Then you hit edit and you can switch over. But they're changing the button labels, and that's the more common pattern I've seen in core. There's no no one's done a toggle, and the tricky part is you got to make sure it's accessible. So you might be going down a rabbit hole. I'd almost say that's a follow-up issue.
I mean, we could do it. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, Ted, please.
I mean, I guess we could do it with a button and change the button text, like disable live preview. And then once you've done that, it's like re-enable live preview or something. I don't know what people think about that.
We use a button to preview node edits. That would be the argument where the button, you're on a node form, you hit preview, and it goes to the node preview. And then it has we could look at that, and the text, I think, is something like back to editing. I'm not totally sure. It might even have an icon. I think it's gotten a little fancy.
One thing I also noticed in building these interfaces before for some kind of a home box implementation is that when people scroll down on the page, they also probably want to toggle when they're lower on the screen, and you kind of lose the checkbox when it's at the top only. So what we've done there was to make that a button and make it fixed, so it scrolls with you. When you go lower onto the page and you always have it visible in your screen, it's also not for people who use the keyboard only. They probably still have to tab through everything, but yeah, maybe that's something to consider.
I can share my screen of the node edit preview, and we can just look at it really quick. I mean, this is the only pattern that seems to match up that we've talked about. Share. So the way it works is we're on a node edit. I've created a basic page. I hit preview, and I really like this design because it pops out and it just shows you, and then it has an arrow back to content editing. We're not jumping pages, like this is changing URLs. And I think in your case, you're using Ajax. So this might not be necessary, but does stay there. So that's kind of a nice, this fixed preview button is a nice feature. Because as you're scrolling through, as you're scrolling through it, you can turn it off at any time.
Yeah, I really like that it's fixed.
That's really nice. Yep.
The only other note here is what's nice is this does, I don't know, it becomes like a toolbar. Ted, I don't know the extent of Layout Builder, but it's just this notion of this floating toolbar. So you have the preview in it, but if there's some other opportunity to leverage it, that could help. I mean, we're using it here to change the mode. So it shows the teaser view. All right, I'm going to turn it off. That's it for me.
So would there be a pattern that could apply here, Ben, Ted?
Yeah, I'm going to be looking into seeing if I can co-opt some of the node preview, because that would address the fixed location and potentially have some of the benefits of a toggle. So that's a great suggestion.
All right, so we still have time, and we didn't have more issue suggestions that I'm aware. So who has more to discuss? Christina, can you update us maybe on how the admin UI work is going? Sorry, putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared. Well, anyway, I can explain that the Claro theme is really moving forward. It's really cool to see Laurie and Zoltan and so many people working on that. The main problem that we're having right now is we're a little bit, they are almost getting us on the design side because we are also discussing other things and, well, we're creating new components, discussing the things that they find that we haven't solved yet, and also starting some work on the wireframes and so on for the next UI. So we really need help on the design side. Well, people that actually wants to work sometime there. The problem on the design side is that you need some context to start working. It's not like every 2 months you invest on that half an hour, because probably everything has moved from the last time you were there. So that's the main problem there, having more people. And we've created an admin UI design channel. So it's only to discuss designs in case anybody is interested, like Emily or someone, any other designer or someone actually interested on the design side, where we discuss whatever we do on Figma and some problems that appear on the Claro theme. And apart from that, I don't think there are updates. That's all so far. Not sure if you were expecting some showcase, some designs or something.
No, I understand that you were not prepared, and that's a work in progress.
Maybe I can. That can be useful actually. Let me share my screen.
Let's do it.
So let me wait. Because a little bit of context, we've been, let me find the issue. We've been on Claro, we have on the design side, we have an issue for finding a color that behaves like the complementary, or at least a color to encase or at least to show the focus element, the place where the focus is, and it ideally should be different than the blue one, for example. Okay, let me. Yeah, it's I'm gonna share with you the issue. On the UX Slack, it's inside Claro, is the 3028099. So the idea is to address with another color this the way that we should actually show the element that actually has the focus on it. And as you can see, can you see my screen with the?
Yes, we see your screen.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, for example, we will use it like for the borders on the fields, for like an outline or something like that on buttons. Here we have another example for the tab. So there are different options here. And well, we've had some suggestions from Andrew, which is great. But we are right now discussing which color we should use. And I know it's a design thing, but maybe you all want to say something about that. So maybe we have, so that's a complementary color for blue. So it's, the contrast is really good. So we need to keep this contrast ratio above 3:1 for accessibility. So we have this orange, we have a green, we have blue, purple, another green, red. And those are the possible options. So you can see the purple here, the green, another green, purple with some shadow. So what are your thoughts about that? Anybody that wants to get into that? Any opinion about it?
So do we have accessibility feedback on which would be better, or that doesn't matter?
It does matter, but initially we just showed to the on the issue the green. So most of the feedback, it was about contrast and keeping that different from the element that it was focusing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly the whole comment that Andrew made here. Yeah, so we should try to keep in mind the color doesn't crash with any other element on the design.
Well, I love the green. I mean, I think green is a great color because people don't use it that much, and it means go universally. And that's a really simple pattern. I did, when you started showing the other colors, I have a concern, and it's a tricky one. It's about color blindness. Because green is a really rough color for people who are colorblind. They don't usually see it. So it just, I mean, I don't know how far we go with that in terms of accessibility, because you are putting a border around it. Therefore, there's an indicator that something's changed. So that, besides color, we're using a design element.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the point here. So
I mean, the green stands out. Purple, you go back to traditional link colors. Blue means, click on, it's a link, and purple means you visited the link. So I feel like they're inappropriate. And red was the active state. That's your traditional, and we're using red for warnings and errors. So green feels like it stands out as like, go. It's, here's your status. That color makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, the tone of it, I don't, both. Of course, I like the aqua green, but that's because I like the color. I don't know if I like. I almost would say a brighter yellow or green would, stand out more. But then you
Yeah,
might
the
get
problem with
contrast.
yellow is, yeah, exactly. The problem with yellow is contrast. That was actually our first choice, but we saw that you end up having something like orange or something like that.
Chrome did make this decision with their browser where their focus style is like a halo with a shadow. And I think when they explored it, they were just trying to make sure no matter where this focus element was sitting on, it would stand out. And that seems to be the only browser where their default focus style is decent. Mozilla seems to fall apart, like it's hard to see. And I like the designs. That's my feedback.
Thanks. So how did you say that it's the focus on Chrome?
Chrome does that halo. They do like a fuzzy blue. Let me see if I have here. I'll just share my. Yeah, it's a blue halo that they fuzz.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you have Chrome and you can just. I can share my screen for 2 seconds. I don't.
Cool.
Oh yeah, we're using it in Bardic, so we didn't override. So we're just getting this blue halo. That's their.
Okay.
I think they're trying something universal. So just to have halo, I think it has some. Make this bigger so we can actually examine it. No, it's just a blue. Yeah, it's a blue halo.
Okay. Yeah, that's what we have initially, something similar to that. And yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's the main problem, that the blue is too close to the current blue that we have right now.
Yeah, and Chrome's trying to be universal, and you have a design, so I think it's great. That's great. Really good.
Any other thoughts here?
Yeah, I agree. It looks great. I don't have any critical feedback on it.
Cool. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. Anything else that people want to talk about today? Still have 40 minutes.
Well, I just started looking at this issue. I'll paste it into the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue number is 2466553.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one where, Gabor, you were one of the first ones to comment on it. Untranslated menu items are displayed in menus.
Oh, geez.
And Angie tagged it for usability review some time ago, about a year ago. And I guess the question is, if you enable menu translation, and in your main menu you have links to several nodes, some of which are translated and some of which are not translated. What should happen with the ones that are not translated? Should you see them in the original language, or should they drop out of the menu? And I guess it's generally agreed that some people will want one and some people will want another. And is there any way to decide which is the more common use case? So which one we should make the default? It seems like a hard question to do it without user testing or research or something.
Yeah, I think it largely depends. Like if your menu items are brand names, for example, then they will not have translations, but the content under them may still have translations. But if they are brand names, like they are whatever, Tesla and Coca-Cola and whatever else that people recognize internationally, you don't need to translate them. then they will not be translated, and you will still expect them to show up, even though you don't want to manually enter fake translations for them. So, yeah, I think it depends on the use case.
I guess another option, which maybe is already mentioned here, but I haven't read the whole thing. But another option would be to have some way of indicating that that this particular page doesn't need to be translated. Is that at all a useful thing, or is that just too complicated?
There is a possibility to assign language to menu items to say that it's not applicable to a sign language. So I guess if people use that consistently and they understand how that feature works, then in that case they can architect the menu in a way that would not hide items if we hide them by default. That's true. And maybe the brand example was too exotic, but if it's a menus for your staff list, for example, people in your organization, and you don't want to translate their names for their bio pages, whatever, So that could be a bunch of like these common examples where it's a name of something and it's not really to be translated. I think the key part is whatever we make the default, we should make it in some way that it's overridable or could be changed.
And is there any way to figure out what the more common use case is without doing a big survey or a bunch of user testing?
I don't know.
Because this issue is tagged for usability review, and I just don't know how we can possibly give it a usability review, since it's really a research project.
I would say most of the projects I've done in my Drupal life have been multilingual, and what Gabor says is the default pattern. I mean, in a very few situations, I haven't done that. So most of the time, it's been like that. So if I have, if something doesn't have a translation, you usually expect that it shows there anyway, like the Tesla item on a menu that it doesn't need translation.
Yeah, I agree. That's the default behavior I'm used to with Drupal. I mean, I've worked on small English sites that have sections that are multilingual, and it's kind of frustrating that, when you're on a Spanish version of the site and you navigate to a page that doesn't have a translation, the language code is still in the navigate, in the URL, and I've had to write custom code to kind of route it back to the English page. But the concept behind Drupal's translation system is you're translating the whole site. And then people write custom code or use contrib to manage partial translations. And that's behavior I'm used to with core. I'm not saying it shouldn't be addressed, but I don't know if we can fix it in core.
Yeah, I think it's also so if you are starting to hide items that are not translated, that assumes that you want a pristine single language experience for each translation, where many actual real life scenarios, people start translating their site and then they are half done or something, and they may not want the other half of their site to be inaccessible in that language. So yeah, as real life does not always allow you to translate 100%. So I guess there may be a suggestion to have an option on menu blocks, I guess. If you have multilingual, but that's a lot of ifs and possibilities that you need to take care of. Yeah, that's probably why the issue's been sitting there for 4 years almost.
I wonder if you could just go in there and declare it a won't fix. Although there are patches on it, which presumably are good for something, but maybe those patches should just be carried over into the core module.
Yeah, it could be a config module. Yeah, it's like menu filter or something. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel bold enough usually to want to fix people's problems because, I mean, people have these problems, obviously. There's a bunch of tips here that they can still find if they find the issue.
Yes.
And it's a nicely titled issue, so they can actually be found. So I think we can say that we don't have feedback on it and remove the needs usability review tag or something. That's an option for us if we don't want to rule it out.
Okay, I think I will do that. I will remove the tag and suggest that, well, first of all, if they want a review at a later point, they need to sort of come to a consensus on what the proposed resolution is, and then we can be asked to review it again.
Great. Thank you. So I think we ran out of time with that. I don't think the remaining few minutes will allow for much. So thanks everyone for coming and see you next week. Great work.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.